Welcome back to part 17 of my DIY autonomous mobile robot building series. Today in part 17, using Fusion 360, we will create a 3D model of an HC SR04 holder and rotatably mount the HC SR04 holder so that it can turn to the left and to the right. If you're just joining us, be sure to check out parts 1 through 16. The links are in the description and the full playlist is at the end of this video. Okay, carrying on from part 16, our next mission is to get the HC SR04 to rotate with the servo horn of the SG90 micro servo. If we go to the SG90 in the browser, open up the joints folder, which unlike in this footage is inside the relationships folder if you're running the latest version. Right click on Revolute and select animate joint relationships. So the SG90 micro servo is rotating as it should, but the HC SR04 together with the head remains stationary. Let's hide the head and neck and take a closer look. Hide the plastic bushing. First of all, the bottle cap is not rotating together with the servo horn of the SG90. The screws which penetrate through the bottle cap are rotating together with the servo horn as though the base of the bottle cap is made out of liquid. This is because the bottle cap is only sitting on top of the servo horn and is not joined onto it properly. So the footage has jumped ahead with the SG90 micro servo isolated. Go to Assemble and select Joint. Then select the center snap point at the rotational center of the servo horn on the plane that lies on the top surface of the servo horn. Then swivel the SG90 to a lower angled view, unhide the bottle cap, and select the central snap point on the underside of the bottle cap. Hit OK. Let's go to the Joints folder and label the newly created joint horn to bottle cap. Hide the joint, go back down to the SG90 in the browser, right click on Revolute and select Animate Joint Relationships. And there we can see the bottle cap is now rotating together with the rotating servo horn. Here the footage has jumped ahead with the SG90 micro servo unisolated. So the next step is to create an HC SR04 holder. Create a new component and label it HC SR04 holder. Move to the rear view by selecting back on the view cube, and here we have the rear side of the HC SR04. Select new sketch and then select the rear face of the HC SR04. Press P to project and select the rear surface of the HC SR04 to project the shape of the rear surface, including each mounting hole at each corner. Select the circle tool and sketch a 7mm diameter circle centered at the top left projected mounting hole, and do the same at the other 3 projected mounting holes. Grab the line tool and sketch a line parallel to the long side of the HC SR04 at an arbitrary length, but longer than the width of the HC SR04. Then use the tangent tool to make the line segment tangent to the 2 circles, and use the coincident tool to make each end point of the line segment coincident with each circle. Do the same for the other 3 sides of the HC SR04. Select the circle tool again, go to one of the corners and sketch a 3.5mm diameter circle centered at one of the mount holes. Do the same at each of the other corners. Next, zoom up to one of the corners, select the line tool and sketch a vertical line from the top edge to a position just past an approximate tangent position relative to the 3.5mm diameter circle. Grab the tangent tool and make this line segment tangent to the 3.5mm diameter circle, and then use the coincident tool to make the end of the line segment coincident with the circle. Select the line tool again and sketch a horizontal line from the left edge in the same manner, and use the tangent tool and the coincident tool again to make the horizontal line segment tangent to and coincident with the 3.5mm diameter circle. Then do the same at each corner. Here the footage has jumped ahead. I have started by sketching a line segment close to a pair of projected mounting holes, using the tangent tool to make the line segment tangent to the pair of mounting holes, and using the coincident tool to make each end of the line segment coincident with each corresponding mounting hole. Do the same with the other pairs of projected mounting holes and finish the sketch. Hide the HC SR04 select Extrude, and proceed to select all the various portions that will constitute the holder frame of the HC-SR04 holder. Extrude by 0.5 millimeters. Okay, let's unhide the HC-SR04. Here the footage has jumped ahead to where we have a section analysis in the lateral plane or XZ plane, here at a distance of 18.5 millimeters along the x-axis from the origin. As you can see, the 4-pin header near the bottom interferes with the holder frame, so let's make a notch out of the frame to accommodate that. Unhide the sketch and right-click and select Edit Sketch. Select the line tool, change the line type to Construction, and sketch a vertical construction line down the center, right down to the bottom edge of the projected perimeter of the HC-SR04. Change the line type back to Solid and sketch a horizontal line segment along the bottom edge to the left and set the length to 5.1 millimeters. Sketch a short vertical line from there to the lower rectangular opening edge. Then use the mirror tool to mirror the horizontal and vertical line segments by selecting both of these lines as objects and selecting the vertical construction line as the center line. Finish the sketch. Hide the section analysis, hide the head and neck component, and hide the HC-SR04. I tried to extrude or cut out the notch by selecting the area defined by the line segments, but the sketch itself is located on the other side of the original extrusion, so we first need to turn the design around before selecting the area to be cut. Select the area of the notch and extrude as a cut operation by 0.5 millimeters. Hide the sketch. Here the footage has jumped ahead with the HC-SR04 unhidden and with the Move Copy tool activated on the bottle cap. So I initially created a copy of the bottle cap as a supporting surface for the HC-SR04 holder. However, I ended up not being able to use this extra bottle cap due to space restrictions, which I will show you why very soon. Go back to the rear view, zoom up a bit and activate the HC-SR04 holder. Select the frame we created earlier and create a new sketch. Press P to project. Select the frame to project the entire frame we have sketched. Select the top face of the second bottle cap and hit OK. Select the line tool and sketch a vertical line from the start point of this curve down to an arbitrary point lower than the top of the bottle cap. Then sketch a horizontal line on the left side that crosses this vertical line. Then use the coincidence tool to make the left horizontal line coincident with the vertical line. Then do the exact same thing on the lower right side. Select the line tool again and sketch a 0.5 millimeter line inward from this point where the top left outer curve starts. Select the line tool again and sketch a vertical line from the end of the 0.5 millimeter line segment down to the lower horizontal line we have just sketched. Then do the exact same thing on the right side. Next, change the line type to construction and sketch a 0.5 millimeter construction line from what will be the bottom of the HC-SR04 holder. Select the line tool, change the line type back to solid, and sketch a horizontal line from the top of the 0.5 millimeter construction line we have just created over to the left side. Finish the sketch. Select the sketch profile that defines the right side wall. Select the extrude tool and continue selecting the profiles of the HC-SR04 holder to be extruded. Then extrude by 40 millimeters. Activate the main design. I forgot to activate the HC-SR04 holder when I extruded the frame body. As you can see, when we hide body 13 in the root or main folder, the frame around the HC-SR04 disappears. So this is the body we need to move to the folder for the HC-SR04 holder. Right-click on body 13 and select Move to Group. Scroll down to the Bodies folder of the HC-SR04 holder. Select Target Group in the Move to Group palette. Then select the Bodies folder of the HC-SR04 holder. Then hit OK, and there we can see the body added to the Bodies folder. Unhide Sketch 1 and Sketch 2. Change to the front view and activate the HCSR04 holder component. Select Extrude and select the remaining profile portions at the lower end of the frame defined between the frame on the base and sides, and extrude by -0.5 millimeters. As you can see in the palette, the operation has automatically changed to join, so we can just hit OK. Hide Sketch 1 and Sketch 2 of the HCSR04 holder and activate the main design. Select the corner edge defined by the vertical front wall or frame and the horizontal base. Select the fillet tool and apply a 1mm fillet and hit OK. Next, zoom into the inner corner edge on the inner side, apply a 0.5mm fillet and hit OK. Select each top rear corner edge of the side walls, select the fillet tool and apply a 10mm fillet to those corner edges. Before we carry on, let's make sure the plastic bushing will rotate with the bottle cap and servo horn by joining the plastic bushing to the bottle cap. Right click on the plastic bushing in the browser and isolate the plastic bushing, and use the joint tool to join the center of the bottom of the plastic bushing to the center of the inner side of the bottle cap. I label the joint bushing to bottle cap, then unisolate the bushing. Select the plastic bushing in the browser, select the Move Copy tool and check Create Copy on the Move Copy palette. Rotate the copy of the plastic bushing 2, by 180 degrees. I actually hit return, but I could have also continued as I was. Move plastic bushing 2 up a bit. Just hit OK because that is probably the most we can do with the Move Copy tool. Then right click on plastic bushing 2 and isolate it. I use joint from assemble to join the top side of the upside down plastic bushing 2 to the inner side of the top bottle cap. However, as I mentioned earlier, I ended up not using the top bottle cap, as you'll soon see. Right click on plastic bushing 2 and unisolate it. Here the footage has jumped ahead a bit. Unhide the head and neck, and I need to unhide plastic bushing 1 in the footage here. Unhide the section analysis. Unhide the front to rear cross section that we have previously made. Zoom up to where the two plastic bushings meet, and I think you can see that the two ends of these plastic bushings interfere with each other. Select Measure from Inspect and measure the distance between each end of the plastic bushings, and we get a distance of 0.836 millimeters, which is slightly smaller than the thickness of the top surface of the bottle cap. Here the footage has jumped ahead, in which the second bottle cap has been removed and plastic bushing 2, which was joined to the undersurface of the second bottle cap, has dropped down to an arbitrary vertical position. Hide the section analysis and hide the head and neck component. Here the footage has jumped ahead and the camera has sped up while showing plastic bushing 2 being directly joined to the undersurface of the HCSR04 holder using the joint operation from assemble. So zooming up to the upper and lower ends of the respective first and second plastic bushings, we can see a tiny gap, which is probably a perfect amount of clearance. I hid the joint and labeled it bushing to HCSR04 holder. Now let's create a connector tube that will integrally connect the two plastic bushings together. Create a new component and label it connector tube. Navigate to the top view, select a new sketch and select the XY plane. Select the circle tool and sketch a 12mm diameter circle on the origin. Then sketch a 14mm diameter circle and finish the sketch. Activate the main design, select Measure from Inspect. Measure the distance between the flange portion of the upper plastic bushing and the flange portion of the lower plastic bushing, and we get a distance of approximately 40.6 millimeters. So activate the connector tube, then right click and isolate it. Select the area defined between the 12mm and 14mm diameter circles. Select the Extrude tool and extrude by 40mm. Select the entire connector tube and add a fillet of 0.1mm for each circular edge. Activate the main design. Let's go down to the bottom end of the connector tube and select the Joint tool from Assemble and select the central snap point on the plane that is defined on the end of the connector tube. Unhide plastic bushing 1, which is the lower plastic bushing, and select the central snap point on the plane that lies on the top face of the flange. And there the connector tube glides into place. Then use the Joint tool again and select the central snap point at the top of the connector tube. Unhide plastic bushing 2, and likewise select the central snap point on the plane that lies on the underside of the flange of the plastic bushing. Upon doing so, we can see that a slight clearance exists between the top of the connector tube and the underside of the flange of the upper plastic bushing. Now go to the connector tube in the browser, right-click and unisolate it. Let's just hit Home, scroll to the HC-SR04 ultrasonic sensor in the browser, right-click and isolate it. Turn the HC-SR04 around to the rear side and select Joint from Assemble and select the central snap point at one of the mounting holes. Unhide the HC-SR04 holder, rotate the design and zoom up to a corresponding mount hole of the HC-SR04 holder and select the central snap point on the plane on the front surface of the HC-SR04 holder. This mounts the HC-SR04 onto the HC-SR04 holder. Right-click on the HC-SR04 in the browser and unisolate it. Here I have labeled the joints between the connector tube and the upper and lower bushings, and I have also labeled the joint between the HC-SR04 and the HC-SR04 holder. Close the joints folder, right-click on Revolute in the SG90 and select Animate Joint Relationships. Now the HC-SR04, the HC-SR04 holder, the plastic bushings and the connector tube are all integrally rotating with the left and right rotation action of the SG90 micro servo. To continue, click here for part 18. If the link isn't showing, part 18 isn't quite ready but should be soon. Check out the description for my upload schedule. Thank you for watching.